0500 hours, river delta near the Chasiv Yar sector. Dense fog clings to the surface of the black water, obscuring the far bank in a wall of impenetrable gray. The air is heavy with the smell of wet mud, diesel fumes, and decaying river weed. Along the shoreline, 24 amphibious armored vehicles idle in a tight formation, their engines rumbling like sleeping beasts. The vibration shakes the ground, sending ripples through the shallow puddles nearby. Commanders stand exposed in their turrets, peering through thermal binoculars into the void. The water laps gently against the steel hulls, masking the violence to come. A single green flare pops overhead, sizzling as it arcs through the mist. The low rumble erupts into a mechanical roar. The lead armored vehicle lurches forward, tracks grinding against the gravel bank. It plunges nose first into the deep water. A massive splash washes over the glacis plate. The vehicle bobs heavily, fighting its own weight before the water jets engage. White foam churns at the rear. The rest of the column follows. One by one, the heavy steel boxes slide into the river. They form a long, jagged line stretching out from the shore. The current grabs at them, pushing the flat-sided hulls downstream. Drivers fight the steering yokes to keep their course true. Inside the troop compartments, soldiers grip their assault rifles. The vehicles are slow. They move at a crawl, exposed and sluggish on the open water. The engines strain against the resistance of the river. On the far side, the fog swirls. The river remains silent except for the churning of 48 propellers. The column reaches the halfway point. They are now committed. There is no cover. There is no turning back. The lead commander raises a hand, signaling for increased speed, unaware that the target lock has already been acquired. 0510 hours, U.S. Coastal Defense Battery, concealed tree line on the northern bank. The forest is utterly silent, save for the dripping of condensation from pine needles. Camouflage netting draped over massive mobile launchers flutters slightly in the pre-dawn breeze. Inside the command vehicle, the only light comes from the cold blue glow of tactical displays. Operators sit hunched over their consoles, faces illuminated by the digital wash. The air conditioning hums quietly, fighting the rising heat from the server racks. On the primary radar screen, 24 distinct signatures pulse in a neat line. They are slow, they are steady, they are perfectly exposed. Target acquisition confirmed, the fire control officer states. His voice is flat, devoid of emotion. He taps a sequence of commands into his keyboard. A digital box snaps around the lead amphibious vehicle on the screen. Then another box around the rear guard. Then 22 more boxes appear in rapid succession. The targeting computer calculates range, wind speed, and the river's current. It predicts exactly where each vehicle will be in 7 minutes. Outside, the hydraulic stabilizers on the launch trucks hiss as they extend, digging deep into the soft earth. The massive launch tubes elevate. They rise slowly, pointing toward the gray sky like monoliths. The metal groans under the stress of the movement. Back in the river, the amphibious column pushes forward. The lead driver wipes sweat from his forehead. He sees the far bank emerging from the mist. It looks empty. It looks safe. He exhales, his grip loosening slightly on the controls. The trap is set. The bolt is pulled back. The finger tightens on the trigger. 0515 hours, U.S. Coastal Battery, concealed firing position. The forest remains still. A light drizzle begins to fall, tapping against the steel hulls of the launch trucks. Inside the control van, the fire control officer watches the countdown timer. The red digits flicker. 3, 2, 1. He flips the safety toggle and slams his thumb onto the firing stud. The world outside erupts. Compressed air charges detonate, blowing the protective covers off the launch tubes. The solid rocket boosters ignite with a deafening roar that splits the morning air. A massive column of fire blasts downward, scorching the earth and instantly turning the damp soil into glass. The heavy missile screams as it claws its way out of the tube, fighting gravity with 40,000 pounds of thrust. The 50-ton launch truck rocks violently on its hydraulic stabilizers. Shockwaves ripple outward, stripping the leaves from the surrounding pine trees. The camouflage netting catches fire, curling away in black ash. The first missile climbs. It pierces the low-hanging clouds, leaving a corkscrew trail of white smoke. Seconds later, the second tube fires, then the third. The clearing becomes a chaotic storm of noise, heat, and smoke. High above the tree line, the first missile levels out. The solid rocket booster burns out and separates, tumbling away into the forest below. The air intakes snap open. The liquid fuel ramjet engine ignites with a hollow boom. The missile surges forward, instantly breaking the sound barrier. A white vapor cone forms around the nose cone. It drops altitude, diving toward the river, accelerating to 3 times the speed of sound. 0517 hours, airspace above the river valley. The sky screams. The 4 supersonic missiles level out at 50 feet above the water. They are no longer projectiles, they are autonomous predators. The ramjet engines howl with a pitch that vibrates the earth itself. The air in front of the nose cones compresses until it turns into shimmering plasma. Beneath them, the river water recoils. The massive pressure wave traveling beneath the missiles strikes the surface. A trench of displaced water 10 feet deep carves itself into the river, trailing behind the weapons like the wake of a phantom ship. Mist vaporizes instantly upon contact with the searing heat of the exhaust. On the river surface, the armored column trudges forward. The lead commander scans the tree line. He sees nothing. Then the horizon flickers. 4 distinct streaks of fire appear against the gray clouds. They are moving impossibly fast. They do not look like planes. They look like meteors skipping across the water. He grabs his radio handset. He opens his mouth to shout a warning. The sound hits them. A physical wall of noise slams into the convoy before the warning leaves his throat. The sonic boom shatters the glass periscopes on the lead vehicles. Eardrums rupture instantly. Soldiers inside the steel hulls clutch their heads as the pressure wave hammers the armor plates. The water around the vehicles whips into a frenzy of white foam, rocking the 20-ton machines violently. The missiles cover the remaining 2 miles in 3 seconds. They do not slow down. They make final micro-adjustments, their guidance fins snapping with robotic precision. The radar seekers in the nose cones burn through the fog, locking onto the warm engines of the floating armor. 0519 hours, mid-river. The sonic boom has just passed. The water churns violently from the pressure wave. 2 armed patrol boats on the northern flank attempt to turn, their engines screaming. Gunners spin their turrets, barrels searching the sky in panic. It is a futile gesture. The first missile dips its nose. It ignores the heavy armor of the swimming carriers for a split second, locking onto the distinct radar signature of the patrol boat's mast. It impacts. There is no screech of metal. There is no crumple zone. The missile strikes the aluminum hull at over 2,000 miles per hour. The patrol boat instantly vaporizes. It does not explode. It disintegrates into a cloud of superheated metal and red mist. The sheer kinetic energy drives the shattered remains of the vessel deep underwater before the warhead even triggers. Then, the detonation. A geyser of black water and white steam erupts 300 feet toward the clouds. The river bottom fractures. The blast wave expands outward in a perfect crushing ring. It slams into the side of the second patrol boat. The vessel flips into the air like a toy, spinning end over end. The hull snaps in half mid-flight, spilling fuel and bodies. The burning wreckage crashes back down, hissing as it sinks. The flank protection is gone. The path to the main column is open. 0520 hours, center of the river column. The sky rains boiling water and fragments of the destroyed patrol boats. The river surface is a chaotic mess of whitecaps and oil slicks. The formation breaks. Drivers rev their engines in blind panic, tracks spinning uselessly against the water's resistance. The heavy armored vehicles drift into each other, steel hulls grinding and clanging together as the current twists them sideways. Commanders scream into dead radios, their voices drowned out by the roar of the incoming warheads. The second missile banks hard. Its guidance fins snap, correcting its flight path by a fraction of a degree. It ignores the individual vehicles. It targets the densest cluster of heat signatures. It slams into the lead troop carrier. The impact is absolute. The missile, designed to penetrate the thick steel of a destroyer, passes effortlessly through the thin armor of the carrier. It enters the front glacis and exits the rear engine block before the fuse triggers. The vehicle explodes from the inside out. The turret, weighing 2 tons, is hurled 300 feet into the air, trailing a comet's tail of burning diesel. The blast wave expands instantly. It catches the 2 vehicles drifting alongside the target. They are not hit directly, but it does not matter. The shockwave lifts them bodily out of the water. They hang suspended in the air for a heartbeat, tracks dripping mud, before crashing back down upside down. Water floods the crew compartments instantly. Soldiers scramble in the darkness, fighting the rushing river. The surface of the water ignites. Leaking fuel from the destroyed leader spreads a blanket of orange fire across the river. The remaining vehicles are trapped in a floating inferno. The third missile begins its final dive. 0521 hours, the kill zone. The river is a cauldron of fire and black oil. Thick smoke rolls across the water, choking the surviving crews. Visibility drops to 0. The roar of the burning fuel mixes with the screams of the wounded. Above the carnage, the last heavy missile initiates its terminal dive. It does not target a single vehicle. It targets the center of the frantic formation. The missile strikes the water surface 3 feet from the hull of a central personnel carrier. The warhead detonates. This is a weapon engineered to break the keel of an 8,000-ton destroyer. Against lightweight amphibious armor, the energy release is absolute. A sphere of blinding white plasma expands instantaneously, hotter than the surface of the sun. It engulfs the nearest 4 vehicles. There is no shrapnel, there is no wreckage. The 4 armored carriers simply cease to exist. The intense heat vaporizes the aluminum hulls instantly. The water beneath them flashes into steam, creating a massive, expanding void in the river. A shockwave of superheated gas blasts outward at 4,000 feet per second. It hits the next ring of vehicles. The blast wave strips the turrets off their chassis like bottle caps. Heavy machine guns are twisted into pretzels. The reactive armor tiles on the hulls detonate sympathetically, adding to the chain reaction. A 20-ton vehicle is tossed laterally across the water, skipping like a stone before smashing into the muddy bank. It lands on its side, tracks spinning wildly in the air, the hull glowing cherry red from the thermal pulse. Debris rains down for a mile in every direction. It is not recognizable parts. It is a hail of molten steel droplets and charred rubber. The center of the river is empty. Where the platoon commanded by the captain once floated, there is only a bubbling crater of steam and oil. 05:23 hours beneath the surface. The river is opaque, a swirling soup of silt and stirred-up mud. Shafts of orange light from the surface fires penetrate the gloom. The massive carcass of a destroyed carrier sinks slowly, rotating as it falls toward the riverbed. Bubbles stream from its shattered hatches. The secondary shock waves arrive. Water does not compress. The energy from the missile detonations travels through the fluid like a solid hammer. It slams into the hulls of the 6 remaining vehicles on the periphery. They are not hit by fire, they are hit by pure pressure. The steel plates do not bend, they buckle instantly. On the 3rd vehicle, the floor pan snaps upward. The welds holding the chassis together shear off with a sound like a cracking whip. The entire hull twists, torquing the tracks off their drive wheels. Inside, the air pressure spikes. Eardrums burst. The hull integrity fails completely. The river rushes in, not as a leak, but as a solid wall of water. It fills the troop compartment in less than a second. The heavy rear ramp, warped by the pressure, tears off its hinges and sinks. The vehicles lose buoyancy instantly. The engines choke on water and die. The heavy machines plummet like stones. The darkness swallows them. Inside the crushed steel coffins, the water settles. The turbulence fades. 0600 hours, the Chasiv Yar sector riverbank. The sun begins to pull away from the horizon, casting a pale, sickly light over the scene. The heavy fog has been burned away, replaced by a thick, suffocating blanket of black smoke that hangs motionless in the stagnant morning air. The roaring of the missiles and the thunder of the explosions have faded into a haunting, hollow quiet. Only the soft crackle of burning oil and the distant rhythmic lap of water against the shore remain. The river surface is no longer a pristine mirror of the sky. It is a graveyard of industrial waste. Thousands of gallons of diesel fuel and hydraulic fluid have formed a shimmering, rainbow-colored slick that stretches for miles downstream. Twisted scraps of metal, charred life vests, and blackened rubber tires bob in the gentle current. Occasionally, a massive air bubble erupts from the depths, bringing with it a fresh burst of oil from a submerged wreck. On the northern bank, the U.S. Coastal Defense Battery remains invisible, the silent launchers already retracted and prepared for relocation. There are no cheers. There is no celebration. The operators simply monitor their screens, watching the last of the heat signatures fade into the cold blue of the river. On the southern bank, the mud is churned and scarred by the tracks of the vehicles that never made it across. A single battered helmet washed up in the reeds is the only sign that an army had been there an hour before. The 24 armored carriers and the men inside them are gone. They rest in the silt, crushed and silent under 50 feet of dark water. The river flows on, indifferent to the violence that has just occurred, slowly washing the soot and ash toward the sea.